And we are live.
Hello.
Hi, Nicole.
Hello there.
So welcome. Welcome to episode 14 of The Wire. Can you believe we've done this 14 times?
And I keep thinking we're going to run out of content, but we don't.
I feel like we've done this like 1,400 times, except we've only actually recorded like 14 of them.
I know.
So for anybody just joining us, what Nicole and I do each week is we talk about the latest news on the wire fraud front. Sometimes we're talking about strategies to prevent real estate related wire fraud. We've done that in several episodes prior to this one. And often we're talking about cases where families or people or communities have been victims of real estate related wire fraud. So today, we're going to be doing that and be sharing one of those stories. So Nicole, you want to talk to us a little bit about what it is we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So each week I'm looking up information on real estate wire fraud. And this morning I just changed my keyword search a little bit in Google and I came across a handful of GoFundMe set up by people who have lost money to real estate wire fraud. And it's crazy. It's crazy that these are not articles that are posted in the news. These are GoFundMes. So there's a few problems there with that. The first is that there's no general awareness being raised for the general public. I mean, that's what we need to be doing. And go ahead, Chris.
The GoFundMes are the worst, right? They're the ones that are like, they're the ones that are just like the gut punch for me. Like we built this thing called the wire fraud tracker on our website on SafeWire.com. And we would go and we spent some time finding all of these cases that were reported on through the news or through articles and online, that sort of thing. And so we started tracking them on our tracker. And through that, we found this, we found on GoFundMe that families, real estate agents, friends were creating these GoFundMes for people that were victims of this that didn't make the news or sometimes they did. And that's the stuff, those are the stories that to me are just like, fuck, like this is crazy. And so
it's so crazy.
The one that you found this morning is one, I mean, this, and I shared it in the Facebook live link and we'll share it on the podcast link. But this family, the husband is a Marine and the wife is a third grade teacher. I mean, it's bananas.
And they have 2 kids and they lost $82,000. $82,000. And he's in military and she's a teacher. That is hard-earned money.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking. So, it doesn't go into detail around how it happened, but, we can talk a little bit about what we generally see in situations like this and how it is happening. We've talked about this before, but, the reality right now is that the real estate industry is under attack by groups of professional online fraudsters. And in the past, they have done this through other types of scams and frauds where they pretend to be someone they aren't, and they call them romance scams or things like that, where, they're basically just trying to find a mark or a dupe to get them to send a few $100s, a few $1,000s, even more. So those have been around for a long time. And now those same folks have morphed into lower hanging fruit, bigger opportunities in this real estate related fraud. And it's not hard to find contact information for lenders, real estate agents, that sort of thing. And then those folks become targets, right? And so if those folks don't have proper protections set up on their emails, on their making that information accessible, and then it becomes pretty easy to get in there and send the wrong information to the right people.
And it's the email addresses of real estate agents. I just found another article today about a lender's email who was hacked. We're seeing it happen to attorneys. We're seeing it happen to title companies. We have every single Every single one of those across the board. It's happening to every single one of them. And these are people who have been in the business for a long time. I know a lot of people vet themselves and say, hey, I've been doing this for a while. I'm good. You're not good. This is a new crime.
Yeah, and those are typically the ones that are the most vulnerable, is people that have been doing this a long time and have been able to, maybe not have the safest protections on their, whether it's their email, their professional email, or their personal email, what have you. Like those are, and it becomes not, I don't want to say arrogance, but it becomes a, well, this can't happen to me, or this won't happen to me type of situation. And, I'm telling you, like, this is happening to it. This is a growing problem that's getting worse, not better. And as an industry, if we don't get our arms around this, I feel like I've been on a soapbox about this for the last few years. If we don't get our arms around this, then, and the consumer loses faith and trust in what it is we do as an industry, we're going to have a problem. That's going to put a lot of people into new career choices in the next 5 to 10 years if we can't get our arms around this.
Right. And then in general, I mean, the clientele will trust all of us much less. I mean, but right now there's not a lot of awareness around it. I mean, there's a few blurbs that we say at the time of opening or start signing a contract or working with an agent. There's really nothing. Again, the email signature has a little statement at the bottom. There's really nothing.
Well, and that's it, right? This starts with education. It starts with educating the industry and educating our clients and agents and lenders, and who can then educate their clients, and on and on. And at the end of the day, we're all responsible to make sure consumers are protected in real estate transactions. And so these conversations aren't being had. It's arguably negligent, especially if you're not protecting your own business and you're not protecting access to your information, to your client's information. It's a really bad look. And so, that's why we do this. We do this because of the 4 people that will listen and actually hear what it is we're trying to say. Maybe that's 4 less people that are likely to be attacked. Since we're streaming this live, should we talk a little bit about some actual suggestions of what somebody, if they're listening to this, can do right now if they are not sure whether or not they're protected?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first one is really, if you don't know what 2-factor authentication is, look it up and then turn it on your email. It's super easy. Don't be discouraged by it. It is simply just turning on the ability to receive a code to verify that you are who you say you are when you open your email. What happens, the reason this is important is because if a hacker ends up getting your password and they can get into your email account, they can go ahead and log in, use your username and password, but they won't be able to actually get access to your email unless you have 2-factor authentication set up. And the reason that's important is because this is how the hacking is happening. They are getting into emails of industry professionals, and they are taking and diverting emails from all important parties and then responding on your behalf. And this is how they swap out wiring instructions. This is how wire fraud is happening. So if you do not know what 2-factor authentication is, set it up on your email first, and then possibly your online banking if you would like to do that as well. I would have it everywhere.
So what happens if I haven't done that and I don't know that I have been compromised?
So
because that's it, right? So if you potentially have been compromised, you are likely to not know it. And these guys are good, they're patient, and they just wait. They get access to an account and they wait and they watch and they're looking for the transaction. So if they're already in there, what would I do?
Well, the first thing you're going to do is still turn on 2-factor authentication, then change your password. If you change your password, it will boot them out. And then if you want to know if they've actually been in your account, go check out your forwarding rules and see if there have been any rules set up. And what they do, again, is they divert the emails from anyone involved in the transaction to some weird folder that you're likely not going to check. And then they sit there and they monitor that folder.
So the way it works basically is what I'm hearing you say is if if I'm unsure, I should go into my email, change my password, make sure two-factor is turned on. And then in your email account, there's either something called forwarding rules or filters is another thing that they use. And the way a filter will work is I could figure out who is involved in the transaction, and I could filter out any email that comes from, if it's your buyer or a seller or the title company or whoever, I can filter those out of your inbox so you'll never see them. They'll go into another folder that you're not going to look at. And then once that happens, if I can then manipulate that information that gets exchanged between a title company, between the real estate agent, between the lender, between the consumer. And that's what's happening. That's where they're getting us.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what you would do. And I would think that if anyone's listening to this and does not check, I just think that's a bad choice. I would absolutely check. I think some of you may be surprised as to what's going on in your email inbox. We've seen it. We know it's happening. We've talked to people locally even.
Yeah. And everybody likes to think, well, no, it was my client who was hacked. Well, no, it's not likely it was your client that was hacked, because they're not targeting your clients. They're targeting you, right? They're targeting the professionals, because those are the folks that are doing real estate transactions. The likelihood, you know how many consumers they would have to target to find that one out of a needle in a haystack to figure out who's actually involved in a real estate transaction. I mean, I think nationally it's something like 3% of the population is doing anything real estate related. And so it doesn't make any sense for them to be casting a net upon consumers. They're casting a net upon real estate professionals whose information is readily available on all of these state databases. So
right. In addition to that, I mean, it's all over the real estate, websites as well. I mean, you go to Redfin and you look at penny listing in this area, even you can find any realtor's email address on there. It is public information.
Right. And so that is the target. And so if that is the target, then we can't assume that, no, it's somebody else that's been hacked or somebody else that's been compromised. That's not what's happening. And as people realize more and more what is actually happening, what I think, Nicole, ultimately is going to happen is I think that an attorney is going to get a hold of this and realize the way this is actually happening and who it's happening through, and people are going to start getting sued. And that's when stuff's going to start to change, is when people start getting sued. But right now, nobody's really figuring it out.
So should we talk about Bain versus Platinum?
Yeah, we can talk about all of them. I think we should. Bain versus Platinum Realty was a case that happened a few years ago, and the real estate agent's email had been hacked. And because the hacker was in that email, they were able to swap out the wiring instructions. They sent the fake wiring instructions to the buyer. The buyer wired over $196,000 to the hacker. It was found later that the funds did not arrive. The agent was, they found the agent negligent. Whoa, can't talk today. Negligent because the email had been hacked. I mean, and at that point, they didn't even think that the email had been hacked. This was still early on, where they thought the agent had forwarded along the fake wiring instructions. But the more we look at it, we realize they were hacked. But that agent they were given 85% liability, and they were responsible for paying back $167,000 out of their own pocket. So a precedent has been set in this type of situation. And I don't think people will want to know that, but that's why it's so important you button up your business processes with your email, especially. Yeah, generally this stuff doesn't go to trial, right? In that case, it did. And so that means that there's legal precedent on the books out of Kansas that says, hey, if this happens, you could be personally responsible for up to 85%. And guess what? Like your E&O carrier or your cyber insurance carrier, they're going to tell you you're shit out of luck because they don't cover negligence. Often cases, what's happening is negligence. And so, it's either what's happening is we're seeing cybersecurity, policies going up 25% year over year because of this. And that's if they even cover you, if this happens due to negligence. And so it's a devastating thing, not just to the victims, but to someone's business. And that's, again, why we're so passionate talking about it. We're not doing it to scare people, but hey, if we need to scare people, we will. We're doing it because, at the end of the day, we're all collectively responsible to make sure that this stuff is prevented.
It's interesting. You say we're not doing this to scare people, and it's true, but the more you actually know about it, the scarier it is. And I think maybe that's why people don't want to know about it, because it's scary.
Yeah. And it's overwhelming. It's scary. And once people want to just, put their head under a pillow and not deal with it, because we don't want to look at things we don't understand. Right. It's like, it's just, it's something that's, it's not always the easiest thing to understand. And so, although when you break it down, it's fairly simple as to what's actually happening, but if we don't understand something, we become afraid of it. We get overwhelmed by it. It's easier easier to avoid it and say, well, it hasn't happened to me yet. Right. It hasn't really happened to anybody I know of. Well, it did happen to this one agent, but I'm not like them. I'm different.
That's right.
So, that's why we would do what we do. That's why we're talking about what we're talking about. And that's why we are trying to, not just use people and education, but technology in order to keep people safe. And so that's what we do. If anybody's interested in more information about SafeWire and how we prevent this, Nicole, what should they do?
You guys can email me, Nicole@safewire.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if you need help turning on two-factor authentication, or if you think your email's been compromised, we'd be happy to talk to you about it as well and help you out.
That is what we do.